Camp is camp. It's tough, but it's for me to want to push myself. This is what I do, this is what I live for. I'm ready for battle. I feel like I'm getting stronger, and I feel by the time the fight comes, I'll be at peak performance.
One more. One more. Beautiful. Good. That's what we've got to bring him on to. Nobody can take them.
It's unbelievable how far and how wide sports can.
Anthony Joshua has officially kicked off the first day of his training camp as he prepares for his highly anticipated showdown with Jake Paul, now set for December 19th. With the fight confirmed, Joshua is wasting no time getting to work, entering camp with a laser-sharp focus and the confidence that comes from being a former heavyweight champion. While Jake Paul's rise from YouTube star to professional boxer has been controversial, there's no denying his ability to command massive attention. This time, however, he's stepping into the ring with a seasoned powerhouse who brings true world-class experience and elite championship pedigree.
I'm feeling energized, I'm feeling refreshed. So yeah, come inside, have a look what's going on. Tough training, tough lifestyle, rough and tough. But listen, how else would I want it? I love it. So what am I bringing differently? I wouldn't say a new mindset, but definitely like a new perspective. But ultimately, everything new has to lead to a win. So yeah, that's what I'm focused on right now, just winning. With training camp, it's grueling, like there's no doubt about that, but you just need to have a clear mind and be optimistic and run towards challenges every day. And that's how I'm able to get through, is just the perspective I have on what suffering looks like. There's a certain standard that one has to have if they want to achieve certain things. I am working past efforts, measures that I set out for myself. Yes.
Mike Coppinger reported that the Anthony Joshua versus Jake Paul fight is a done deal, scheduled for December 2025 in Miami, and will be streamed on Netflix as a professional heavyweight bout.
Joshua still didn't have an opponent for his next fight, but he was thinking of still fighting before the end of the year. And we've got some breaking news for you now, because we're hearing that AJ is in talks with Jake Paul over a deal for a heavyweight fight in Miami next month. Of course, the YouTuber Paul has already fought the former heavyweight champion of the world, Mike Tyson, and beaten him. And he's now in talks with Anthony Joshua with a view to the two of them fighting in Miami.
Eddie Hearn has pushed back on those claims while still confirming that the fight is happening, emphasizing that it will be contested under full Queensberry rules rather than as an exhibition. He made it clear there will be no modified conditions such as larger gloves or shorter rounds, stating that the bout will use standard 10-ounce competition gloves, agreed-upon rounds, and be governed entirely by the traditional professional boxing framework.
A deal for a December heavyweight fight in Florida. True or false?
I mean, the gun was jumped a little bit and fired early. There have been conversations. For us, we were flirting with the idea of having this little 8-round fight this year. Not with Jake Paul, by the way, because he was fighting Gervonta Davis.
Yeah, that's no.
But we were going to go on a other card somewhere. You wouldn't have really heard of the person we were going to fight. But AJ wanted to go through the motions, wrap the hands, and just gear up to what is really in the works with Turki Al-Sheikh, which is 2 fights in 2026, and that includes Tyson Fury. That's the plan for Turki Al-Sheikh. We received a phone call from Nikisa Baldirian, from MVP, who, by the way, we've spoke to a few months before talking to us about the fight. And he said, look, would you want to fight Jake Paul? And I said, listen, I don't want to just be a publicity muppet for you, you know, telling everybody that you offered the fight to Anthony Joshua. If you're serious, we can discuss the numbers. And if there's a chance for us to run out in December and, you know, take care of this bloke and get him out of the boxing world and make several tens of millions in the process, of course, we will consider it. And that's basically where we are.
He told Sky Sports that they have no interest in exhibitions, stressing that if Jake Paul wants the fight, it will be a real bout at a contracted weight. At the same time, Hearn cautioned that the deal is not finalized, describing the chances as 50-50 and noting that there are still many discussions that need to take place before everything is confirmed.
You know, I've got the general feedback is the boxing world saying, please, AJ, go in and evaporate this young man from the boxing world so we can all get on as normal. You've got Jake Paul fans thinking bizarrely they can beat Anthony Joshua. And the most bizarre thing out of everything is that Jake Paul genuinely believes he will beat Anthony Joshua. I think that's the only reason we're going to see this fight, but I truly believe.
Hearn described Jake Paul as crazy enough to chase the fight despite Anthony Joshua being a legitimate heavyweight monster, highlighting the massive payday on the table for both fighters. However, he also stressed the brutal danger of pairing an inexperienced Paul with a seasoned AJ, labeling it a catastrophic mismatch that could potentially end Paul's career, either literally or figuratively.
I just said in another interview, great if it is. I mean, if it is, then you've got no problem seeing it. But when AJ, I mean, decapitates a strong word, but you know, when he renders Jake Paul unconscious like he did to Francis Ngannou, don't then say, oh well, it was Jake Paul. Do you know what I mean? I mean, when AJ beat Francis Ngannou, Ngannou just had a fight that could have gone either way with Tyson Fury. Then AJ poleaxed him, and everyone just said he's just an MMA fighter. Do you know what I mean? Jake Paul's not Francis Ngannou. But as I said before, if you want to see Jake Paul.
However, Hearn has acknowledged that calling out established professional boxers is part of Paul's strategy, as those matchups generate massive attention and an enormous payday.
But he did say after the fight that he's sort of having DMs or he's dropping text messages to AJ. They're having a chat about a potential fight. What's your view on that, Eddie?
Well, look, he's calling out Gervonta Davis, who is a 135-pound lightweight, and he's calling out Anthony Joshua, that's a heavyweight monster. I think Jake Paul is crazy enough to fight Anthony Joshua because the money would be absolutely obscene. It's a catastrophic mismatch that people would tune in to watch because it would lead to the end of Jake Paul. Hopefully not literally, but it's that dangerous that, you know, it's a fight that I don't think should really happen, if I'm honest. I would say about Jake Paul, and I've said this in a couple of interviews today, I do think you start after giving him a margin of respect. You know, I think this guy is going through the motions, he's putting the hard spars in. He just went 10 rounds with, yes, a washed-up fighter, but a former world champion that did train for that fight. But they're very clever in terms of the opponents that they pick. They're not going to gamble unless the money's out of control. And it wouldn't surprise me if Jake Paul, wanted to move forward with an Anthony Joshua fight. Honestly, AJ's coming tonight. He's not exactly looking at Jake Paul going, oh, that's my dream opponent. No. Would he go in there and give him a hiding for...
Simon Jordan has acknowledged that, despite his criticisms, an Anthony Joshua versus Jake Paul fight could benefit boxing in certain ways. He admits the matchup would generate massive global attention, attract millions of new viewers, and create significant financial opportunities for everyone involved. Jordan points out that boxing is ultimately a business, and a bout that combines a former heavyweight champion with one of the world's biggest digital entertainers is guaranteed to draw money, media coverage, and mainstream interest. He believes the spectacle would entertain casual fans, dominate headlines, and spark debate, all of which help keep the sport relevant. While he still questions the fight's competitive legitimacy, he recognizes that financially and commercially it could be a major win for boxing.
You can't undo the fact that he won the World Heavyweight Championship twice. And he fought in some great fights.
So why does he need this?
Because he's in the business of entertainment. And if an opportunity is presented to him and someone wants to say that we can monetize this to the huge levels that are potentially available, why wouldn't you? It's a walk in the park.
You see, you're not having Saturday night.
Because I know
many people wouldn't have this.
Well, I'm not having,
because this isn't a proper fight where a Saturday night is.
But I don't think this is a proper. I don't think that I would ever consider having a debate about whether Anthony Joshua versus Jake Paul is a proper fight between two bona fide champions. I think Jake Paul is someone that's creating a lot of opportunity for himself and using sport as the anchor for it. And would I watch it? No. And do I value it? No. But when I'm asked to be confronted with a fight between two legends' sons, and then
Simon Jordan also took aim at the Conor Benn versus Chris Eubank Jr. fight, arguing that the entire promotion leaned heavily on nostalgia rather than genuine sporting merit. He said the matchup was being sold on the legacy of their fathers' legendary rivalry from the 1990s, instead of what the fighters themselves have achieved in their own careers. Jordan criticized promoters for weaponizing history to disguise the fact that the fight makes little competitive sense, particularly with Ben moving up in weight and Eubank Jr. cutting down dangerously. At the same time, he described the Anthony Joshua versus Jake Paul matchup as a blatant cash grab rather than a serious sporting contest, calling it a mismatch between a former heavyweight champion and a social media star that undermines boxing's integrity. Jordan questioned whether such a fight should even be sanctioned, citing the physical risks to Paul and warning that pursuing this path could cause long-term damage to Joshua's legacy.
Merits the kind of returns that they're going to get for the level that they've operated in their careers. And that's one of my issues around the Conor Ben Eubank fight. This fight over here with Anthony Joshua, I know what this is. No one can dress this up. This is a turd that will get polished into a huge pile of money. And if you know that from the outset,
Yeah.
so I don't have any illusions about it. Neither does anybody else. Nobody thinks that this is a real fight. Nobody thought. I mean, Spencer tried his very level best and will never try it again to convince us that Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul.
Yeah.
Well, this is something similar, but
Yeah.
for different reasons. Anthony Joshua is still a live heavyweight, and if he hits Jake Paul's going to get hurt.
Yeah.
And some people might think that's a good thing to happen to him, so learn his lesson. But he is also now fighting. He's got a fighter's license. And the question should be along the lines of what Chris Eubank Sr. was raising. Is it right? Is this appropriate that a high-performing supreme athlete like Anthony Joshua, whose only real challenges now are probably in his mind, because physically he can operate at the highest level if he still chose to, should be stepping in against someone like Jake Paul that does not have the skill set to deal with the kind of power and expertise that Anthony Joshua has? And should boxing be sanctioning this? This is the bigger question.
Oh, that's true. That is true. Having said all that, Netflix tell us 60 million households worldwide tuned in live to see Mike Tyson take on Jake Paul. Why would Jake Paul end up fighting?
Further fueling the hype, boxing legend Roy Jones Jr. offered an unexpected and more cautious perspective on a potential Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua fight, stressing that the bout must make sense for Joshua both competitively and financially, not just as a spectacle.
Subjects just a little bit here, and Anthony Joshua, there's rumours circulating he could be fighting Jake Paul next. One, do you think it's good for boxing? And two, do you think the fight will happen?
I think it's great for boxing. I think the fight will happen. AJ is 1-0 against these guys that come in to these boxing careers late. So why not? He's a perfect guy to take him out too. He took Ngannou out. Why would he not take Jake Paul out? And for him, he'd probably make more money fighting Jake Paul than he will fight anybody else that he can fight right now. So why would he not do it? I mean, not that he needs the money right now anyway, but if he's going to do something, if he wants to.
Dave Farrar and Spencer Oliver discussed the rapidly escalating public debate over whether Anthony Joshua could face Jake Paul, a conversation that intensified after Saudi boxing supremo Turki Alshik hinted at giving the fight the green light during a TalkSport appearance at Wembley. Alshik claimed that Paul has verbally accepted the bout and said he would like to see Joshua dismantle Paul in what he described as a 1991-style mismatch, framing it as a win-win test of legitimacy for both sides.
Really want to smoke? I mean, he's got to be an idiot if he does, because Anthony Joshua, let's use this as a comparison. Francis Ngannou called Anthony Joshua out after pushing Tyson Fury the way that he did, and you looked at that and he went in there and he iced him in 2 rounds. Francis Ngannou versus Jake Paul, you got to go heavily on Francis Ngannou, haven't you? So what's going to happen to poor Jake Paul if he boxes Anthony Joshua?
Coppinger has raised significant concerns about the proposed Anthony Joshua versus Jake Paul fight, suggesting that Paul's primary motivation seems to be the massive payday rather than sporting legitimacy. He reports that while negotiations are well underway, major hurdles remain, particularly around broadcast agreements and official sanctioning. Coppinger highlighted that Joshua represents a huge step up in size, power, and elite-level experience compared to anyone Paul has faced, making the matchup potentially dangerous. He added that, although the commercial appeal may drive the fight forward, it raises serious questions about Paul's safety, his credibility as a boxer, and the overall integrity of the event.
Story on Ring Magazine, Anthony Joshua and Jake Paul are finalising a deal for a heavyweight fight on Netflix in December in Miami. Sources tell the Ring Magazine's Mike Coppinger. What do you make of that?
Well, Anthony Joshua was talking about wanting warm-up fights before going into bigger fights, but look, it's prize fighting at the end of the day, and the way that Joshua was here and Matchroom and all the team, the fans won't like this, by the way. But
I don't like it
no,
either.
I don't like it either. But the way that Joshua is here is as a money grab. He'll see it as an easy money grab, but at this stage of his career, is it a fight he should be taking? Nah, definitely not.
Yeah, but it shouldn't be licensed.
Paul's promoter, Nakisa Badarian, has addressed concerns about the physical disparity between Jake Paul and Anthony Joshua, stating, "Size-wise, we can get comfortable with it." While Paul is reported to weigh around 210 to 215 pounds compared to Joshua's near 252 pounds, Badarian argued that Paul's strength and rapid development make the matchup viable. He emphasized that Paul's experience at heavyweight, including facing opponents like Mike Tyson, along with his ongoing ring growth, gives him confidence in the matchup. Nonetheless, across the boxing world, professionals have repeatedly voiced concerns over the fight's legitimacy, safety, and impact on legacy. While some acknowledge its commercial potential, very few view it as a credible sporting contest.
Losses are against Alexander Usyk. Usyk weighed in at 220 pounds for those fights. Jake is not Usyk. A lot more years of experience needed to get to that level. But Jake walks around between 208 and 210, and he fought Mike Tyson at 228 pounds. So I think size-wise, we can get comfortable with it. And I think experience-wise, Jake is learning very fast and growing, and Joshua is a little long in the tooth. So it could be a very interesting match.
He's got a weak mind, hasn't he? So Jake could end up getting into it because Jake's got everyone eating out the palm of his hand. He's a very clever man. So
you really think he's got a chance?
Why wouldn't he have a chance? Look how confident he is. I mean, come on. Like, Anthony would have all the pressure in the world, and if Anthony didn't do him with the first few punches, he'd start doubting himself in his head, because that's what he does. But no, Anthony should win, shouldn't he? But
what do you make of Tyson Fury saying that he's going to put $1 million bet on Jake winning by knockout?
Tyson to leg it, lad. He's retired about 50 times. What's he on about, mate? Just tell him to leg it, and I'd love him. If he walked in here, I'd obviously...
At one point, you were good friends.
I'm still good friends, but obviously if he walked in here, I'd act like I'm not talking about him, but then on the camera I'm talking to him. Is this not what we're on?
Fair enough.
Is everyone not fake, or no? We all... What are we on here? Are we all acting like we don't hate each other? Like, come on. Like, what?
You're on absolute...
Former world champion George Groves has also dismissed the idea of Anthony Joshua fighting Jake Paul, seeing no sporting value in the matchup. He argues that Joshua deserves meaningful bouts against legitimate contenders rather than crossover spectacles. Groves described such a fight as low risk and low legacy, insisting that Joshua should either retire or wait for a mega fight with Tyson Fury, which he considers the only matchup that truly matters for preserving Joshua's legacy.
Trying to convince people that he's a legitimate boxer. He's not a legitimate boxer. You've picked someone who was a professional boxer, whose dad was a legend of professional boxing.
Anthony Joshua and Jake Paul embodies the central tension boxing faces in the modern era. The balance between pure sporting competition and commercial spectacle. For Joshua, the fight represents an opportunity to secure a massive payday and re-establish himself in the global spotlight following setbacks in his heavyweight career. For Paul, it is the biggest gamble of his boxing journey. Either a chance to prove he can compete with a true elite or a moment that exposes the limits of his celebrity-built resume.
Joshua. Listen, let's not get confused, guys. Let's not get confused. Yes, cool. Anthony, he took a big L with Daniel Dubois. But Daniel Dubois is not no joke, bro. He's not a joke. Do you know what I'm trying to say? He took a L there. But Jake Paul, I got the utmost respect of what he's done, how he's managed to navigate through the boxing world. Like, bro, it's so mad. And I can see this is like a 90%. It's happening, it's positioning, it's marketing already. Like, why would you see Jake Paul go face-to-face with Alexander Usyk if it's not to position for a fight for Saudi? Obviously, Jake Paul's going to fight Anthony Joshua. There's possibly going to be a Usyk against Tyson Fury 3, because obviously the last two will so...
Do you think Jake Paul actually has a shot against Anthony Joshua? Is this fight a boost for boxing or just a complete circus? Share your thoughts.